All right, everyone. Welcome back. This is KJ. I have a special guest with me today. Special guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa, aka Millennial in Debt, aka the Beyonce of personal finance, and I'm very excited to sit down and have this conversation today.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself to us. I'm excited to have you here. I am a fan, and I have no problem
Oh,
saying
thank
that.
you.
um, I have been following you for a while, and you have just been such an inspiration,
Thank
especially as
you.
someone who's left the teaching field. I think it's important for people to hear your story, you transitioning out from an educator into a different space and just kind of be an inspiration to some of us who are thinking about, leaving the teaching field, or some of us who are on the fence, right? Here, we're called Loves Teaching Will Travel, but there are some of us who are on the fence about what we want to do. And I think hearing your story could be, a door opener for some people who might be thinking about, making some changes for themselves. So I would like to start off by just having you tell us a little bit about you and where you started in your teaching.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. So I still do love teaching. That's why I love the name of this podcast. I became a teacher in 2010, full-time 2011. And I was a high school English teacher for 11 years in New York City. Beautiful city. I had this moment. And I am a first generation Haitian American. So I was the first to go to college, the first to get a degree and really try to figure out and navigate, not only just like student loans and things like that, but a career and figure out, well, what am I going to do with this degree that cost me so much money? These two degrees that cost me so much money. And so I entered the teaching force, I should say, at 22 years old. And I pivoted out of the classroom in 2021. I pivoted into marketing, which I know people are always like, and how, what is this? I pivoted into marketing into the tech industry, specifically fintech. And I do not have a background in marketing. I do not have a background in finance, but that somehow I ended up there. And it was really great and exciting. And then I was laid off in November 2022. And I've been working for myself full time since
Which is amazing, right? Like what a
then. Thank you.
transition that is, right? Like you transition from like working for the school district to working for, a tech company, and now you're working for yourself, which
Yes.
is like an inspiration in itself. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story. What I want you to kind of dig deep into a little bit is like when you transitioned out of the classroom, like I know this information, but to share with
Yeah.
the audience, right? Like, what was that like for you? Like, were you afraid? Like, were you aware of what your next steps would be?
Not really. And I like to share that candid and transparently because I didn't have all the like ducks in a row, so to speak. With the help of my therapist, I just knew like, okay, this is going to be the year that I try. So I didn't know that 2021 would be my last year in the classroom. I didn't know if I would land another job. I didn't even know the type of job that I wanted. I was kind of going out blindly into the job force, not really knowing what was out there, what I could do, what I was capable of. I had a couple of interests and I was just like, okay, this looks interesting. I could try this, I could do that. And I wasted a lot of time doing that because there was no direction. And a lot of times we don't think as educators or anyone that has a career for a very long time, we don't think about all the things we did to get a job when we started and how all of that has possibly changed, right? So I have been teaching since 2010. So my resume was dusty, crusty, old, like it never really got an update with all the things that changed in the job world for the last 11 years. And I had no idea, like, oh, it's not just one interview and maybe like a demo lesson and you get a job. And my best friend was like, no, girl, those days are long gone. And so when I did start landing interviews, and the interviews were like 3 rounds, 4 rounds, and I was just like, what is this? And it took me 4 months before I even got my first interview. And my first interview was actually a rejection interview, which is so interesting because whenever I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I didn't get the job, but I did get an interview due to my network. And so my first interview, my first rejection interview was actually for Facebook, Meta, whatever it is. And that is because I was complaining to my friends and family, like, no one's going to hire me. I'm never going to get out of the classroom. And I saw a social media management position on Facebook. And one of my best friends had a friend that worked for Facebook. So she referred me to the role. And when you do referrals for Facebook specifically, I don't know about other companies, but when you get a referral through Facebook and they say you're not the right fit or you're not going to get the role or they're not going to interview you, they put you into this different pipeline where a recruiter that is not a hiring manager or anything like that, they will speak to you and kind of like get an idea on why you applied for the role or try to see if you might be a good fit elsewhere. And that's why networking and referrals are so important, because if I was just applying like, okay, I'm going to apply to Meta, they would have been like, yeah, no thanks, we don't want you. And I would have never known that I had to pivot my job search strategy and do all these things to actually get my foot in the door into interviews. And so she sat down with me and the first question she asked me was, well, why did you apply to Facebook? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I like Facebook. I use Facebook. And she was like, okay. And she was just like, have you had any management roles? And I was just like, no, I've been a teacher my whole adult life. And she's like, okay, well, just Facebook is very specific when it comes to management roles, that they really want more of a traditional management pathway. And I was just like, okay, that's good to know. And I felt really just like, if more companies are like this, I'm never going to land someplace because I've never actually been a manager. And so she really was patient with me. And it was that conversation that helped me realize that I not only needed more direction in what type of companies I was applying for, I also needed to update my resume. She was just like, this is great. She's like, you have such a really rich history and things. Because I also had like millennial and debt on there and all those things. But she's just like, none of it really tells a story on the role that you're trying to apply for. You're using your teacher resume to apply for a social media management role. She's like, it doesn't, she's like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really align. So she's like, you really need to update your resume to really align with the roles that you're looking for. And she's like, and you want to have a strong why for why you're applying, so that when you do start getting these interviews, it's not going to be like, oh, I just like the company. I have a story, a connection. And that really made like a light bulb go off. And I was just like, okay, well, I want to do something in marketing. I want something to be remote. I want to make sure that I still have good health insurance. I want all these things. And I'm like, well, how do I make my resume tell that story of, yes, I might not have been a manager, but I have management experience. I manage, students all day. I manage my colleagues. I do all these things that include management skills, even though I was never a traditional manager. And so really stopping and looking at the roles that I was interested in and that I wanted to apply for, and even the roles that I was denied, because it was nothing but deny for months. I started changing the way I wrote things on my resume, where I was still using the same skills, the lesson planning, the unit planning, the classroom management, all of these things, but I was changing the way that I present them on my resume to better align and really start picking up interviews. And once I did that and started focusing on applying to ed tech, because I had educational experience, so like it made sense, and fintech, because I was already teaching people about money and how to do finances and breaking things down like that for millennial, I started getting 3 to 4 interviews a week. And that really was just like a game changer and so eye-opening about how much time I wasted not knowing what I was doing and just trying to figure out like, okay, this is where I am. And within that month, I ended up doing an interview with the job I ended up taking, and it was 3 back-to-back. So they like interviewed me Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then that following week, they made me the offer, and I was able to leave the classroom.
Look at that. Look at that. I love it. I love hearing this story because I think you make so many important points that I've talked about on this podcast. Like going back to season 1, the knowing your why, right? The being able to network. Like I don't think people take advantage of these things when it's early on, and it's like later on, like you said, right, that you realize like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, but
Yeah.
you did it, right? And you broke through, you got in, right? You got into
Yeah.
fintech, right? You
Yeah.
got the remote job. You were literally living the dream for some people. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit, right? Tell us a little bit about your experience with fintech.
I loved it. I really, I know sometimes people are like, there's no dream job, and it's true. I don't dream of labor, but this particular role with all the things that I wanted and ended up getting, where I was just like, okay, I'm going to be very strategic in the roles I apply for. I'm going to make sure that my why helps me navigate these roles and these applications. And when I did land it, it was everything I wanted, or that I thought I wanted. In making that transition really smooth. So like I said, it was remote. I wanted more time at home and the flexibility to travel and do things. So it was remote. It was unlimited PTO. I know some people are like, oh, that's a scam. You know, it depends on the company. The company I worked for, they encouraged you to take time off. They wanted you a minimum to take at least a day a month at minimum. And then they were like, you know, people typically take 5 to 6 weeks for the year. That's what they really, really push for. And I was like, you don't gotta force my hand. I will, I will take the days. Don't worry. And so it was a limited PTO, and it had health insurance that wasn't comparable to teaching, because I'm going to tell y'all now, listeners, teaching health insurance is top tier, like amazing, phenomenal health insurance. It wasn't comparable, but it was enough where I was comfortable and I felt like I could, you know, go to the doctor and do all these things. It was definitely a pay increase. So I got everything that I wanted. And it was scary because there is no layer of protection in corporate America. And like I said, my only grown up adult job was teaching. I was in a teaching union. I got tenure in year 3. I was 24 years old, a tenured teacher. Like I did great. I never downplay. I did great as a teacher, but there was this layer of safety that, you know, when the pandemic hit, I wasn't worried about losing my job. When all of these things in the economy happened, I wasn't worried. Whereas in corporate America, you could be fired for pretty much anything. You could be let go for pretty much anything. And so the economy is doing bad. Well, we don't have the money to pay you, laid off, even if you're an amazing worker. Or it's like, oh, you didn't follow directions here, laid off. So I think I was like really excited about the like sparkly, glittery version of all the things that I was dating, which was amazing. And I never minced words about that. But it was scary because it was just like, your job is based off of 100% of the things you can control. And then there's things you cannot control that still could impact that. So I loved it, but I definitely missed the like safety of being in education for sure.
Honestly, we needed to hear that. And I'm so
Yeah. Yeah.
glad that you share that, because I think for a lot of teachers, and honestly, that's probably why many people are on the fence, it's
Yeah.
because there is a sense of safety in education. And even just like, let's say you are let go from a job, like there is such a need for teachers
Right.
right now. Like if you get let go from your job this week, like you have another job next week, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
there is that security, there's that safety, and all of that sounds good. But for a lot of people, there's the burnout, right? There's the
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
pay, the disrespect from parents, or if like if you're
Yes.
teaching like high schoolers, middle, like it's the disrespect. So I think with everything, there's trade-offs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the financial incentive for working in corporate, there's the remote work for working in corporate, but the risk, right? Does the risk
Yeah.
kind of like tie, you know? It's a lot.
You know, that's such a good question. And I think it depends on the time, right? And so right now, it's really difficult because of all the layoffs. So the job market is very saturated with amazing talent. And so, and I talk about that, I always like to bring the honesty in these conversations, because 3 years ago, 2 years ago, it was so much easier, not easy, but easier to make transitions out of your career, whether it's teaching, whatever it is, into a new market, a new industry, because that's just how the job market was set up at that time. It was just like, it was an employer's market, I'm sorry, employees market, where you can make a lot more demands, you can negotiate a lot more, because it was just like people needed really good employees. And so now with all of the layoffs, it's definitely pivoted back into an employee market where someone, I forgot who mentioned it online, they were just like, all the things we achieved in 2020, 2021 with the layoffs, it looks like the companies have won again, right? Because they're not offering the same really big 6-figure salaries for the roles that we were seeing 2 years ago. And they're not offering the same benefits and the same perks. And so it definitely really depends on a couple of things. It definitely depends on your safety net. I always say you want to have that FU fund. We won't curse, but that FU fund of, if something's not going the right way, or if something just pops up where it's like my life, I need to like make a really quick decision. You want to have that financial stability, that financial net to take the time to apply for a new job, or to take the time to figure out what you're going to do next, because these layoffs can come so quickly, so easily. But I always still, I'm so thankful that I made the pivot, because I learned a lot. I gained so many experiences, and I feel like I have the tools and the skill set to get another job in tech if I am interested in doing so, or pivot into something else. So I am glad I made the transition. I don't want anyone listening to be like, oh, I'm not doing it. Right. It's still a really great opportunity to do so. And job markets shift all the time. I just think right now we're in a job market that is very difficult to navigate.
No, I hear you. I hear you 100%. And this is information that I think so many people will find so valuable. And that's
Okay.
why my next question is going to be, what would your advice be for that one teacher who's at work right now and they're just like, I'm not, this is it. I'm done. I'm done.
I understand. I would start now. First of all, we still have a little bit of school left, right? The school year. And I think I waited far too long. And this part of the story, but I waited so far that I missed the open market season in New York. And so people who are listening who teach in New York or may not be familiar, when you want to quit teaching or go to a different school during open market, which is usually from like June, no, it's usually from April into August, where you can leave and go into do whatever you need to do. But when September starts, you now essentially owe the DOE. So, and it's not 2 weeks notice or things like that. So even though I got the job and I signed the offer letter, I had to start a month later at my job because I owed the DOE 30 days notice. And I didn't want to quit my DOE job until I had something set. So I still had to go teach, even though I had another job and I was leaving, I still had to teach that full month of September, 30 school days, before I could leave. And so if you are thinking about leaving, I definitely suggest start looking now, start tweaking that resume now, start seeing what opportunities are out there so you can figure out a path to make sure that when your school year ends, you are, moving towards like, okay, I have the opportunity, or I'm going on interviews, or I'm doing all of these things, and really start talking to the people in the industries that you're interested in going into. So that means blowing the dust off of LinkedIn. I did not, so my LinkedIn was dead essentially since I graduated college in 2010. And I didn't start using it again until August 2021. So you're going to want to go onto LinkedIn and really start networking with, if you're looking into tech, or if you're looking into learning and development roles, which are really great for teachers looking to pivot out of the classroom but still work with similar skill sets that they already have, you want to start looking at companies and start connecting with the people that work there. And you can ask them simple questions like, how is your workday in this particular company? Or you can start going to job fairs, virtual job fairs. The work really should start now. I know it's like, but it's so far from, you really want to start now, just so you can start making adjustments. Because like I said, we've been in the classroom so long, we may not know what the job market is doing and how it's navigated now. So you want to give yourself the best possible outcome and the best possible time to make sure you reach the result that you want to get to.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Like that's invaluable advice that I hope people do take and hold on to. It's important for them to kind of like really assess where they are right now and where they want to be. And I think that you've given such great advice on that, and I appreciate you so, so much.
Thank
Um,
you.
I do have one final question,
Yeah.
and it's always my favorite to ask.
Okay.
Is there anything you wish I would have asked you?
Oh, that's like a deep question. Um, I wish we would have spoken about how I use my teacher skills in my current new job. That's probably like the question I don't talk about often. But honestly, when you're doing like meetings and things like that, you bring in a lot of your teacher like your teacher classroom management skills, your presentation. Like when I made my first major presentation for my job, it was really like creating a lesson plan for my classroom, because you want it to be engaging, you want them to learn something, you want them to do something. So it really was just like, oh, thank God I was a teacher, because it came so natural to do so.
Good. Perfect. Perfect. And this is what people need to hear, right? Because I think sometimes we're in the classroom and we don't know necessarily what's going on outside. And it's like not until you're trying to find something different or doing something different that you realize like you have so many skills that can be transferable,
Yes.
right? Whether it's research skills, writing skills, like public speaking, like we have so
Yes.
much and like none of us even realize it. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
you're seeing it. I'm hoping that others will start to see it and just really think about how they can enrich their lives, whether they leave teaching or continue to teach, right? Whatever it is that they might do. I hope that they just kind of really think about, again, their why, right? And think about what they want to do going forward because it's hard out here, right? It's hard.
Sure is.
It's
Sure is.
hard
But
out.
definitely it is possible. And I feel like teachers are the most amazing, tooting our horn, most amazing, most adaptable. And I really feel like they can do, I guess not brain surgery, right? But like they can do so many different roles in so many different industries. We are truly just the cream of the crop, right? So any teachers listening, just know that you are that person. And so you can do pretty much anything you put your mind to.
Literally, and I say that all the time. You can do
Yeah.
anything. You can literally do anything. Thank
Yep.
you so much for coming on. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Before you go, please let everyone know where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me Millennial in Debt on all platforms, Mill in Debt on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. Or if you prefer like long form, Millennial in Debt on YouTube at millennialindebt.com for my people who love to read and get resources in one place there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for coming on. You are
Yes.
a gem. You are a legend. I am going to continue to follow you. I think you have
Thank
so much to
you.
share, like finance wise. Like, girl, you're getting us all together with that. So,
I hope so. I hope so. I want us all to be future millionaires, truly.
no,
That's what I want.
you're definitely getting me all the way together. So thank you
Yes.
so much for coming on. And everyone else who is here, this is KJ signing off. Until next time. Bye, guys.